Hi, everybody. It's great to see so many people joining us. Today, we have a really special presentation for you by several members of the Art Cloth Network. But before we get to their presentation, I wanted to tell you a little bit about SAQA's upcoming conference. And by the way, I'm Martha Seelman. I'm the Executive Director of Studio Art Quilt Associates, or SAQA SAQA. We are going to be having an online conference coming up in just about a month that is going to focus on all of the wonderful quilts and other kinds of fiber art being created right now by artists in the European countries and in the Middle East. And we have an incredible lineup of presenters, plus a lot of other fun activities that you can do from the comfort of your own home. So Lucy Shakin has put together a short video that shows you some of the types of presentation that we're going to be sharing during that conference. And we hope you'll join us by registering at SAQA.com/virtual. So here is our little teaser video.
So this piece was laid out and painted with bitumen and left to dry outside to trial and see how I could make it really intense. This has actually made it solidify quite a bit, and actually lifting it off the backing, I have an unintended happy accident of a beautiful print here. Fabric is our second skin, that's how as people describe clothing. But to me, this whole cloth thing is skin. It is, it's the reason I tear and mend is to do with our experience of life events. It's like this is the fabric of my being.
I work on the floor because I need some water to keep the fibers on their places and also to form the very exact details. Here are some moments I've been drawing and painting with fibers to separate pieces. Underneath the plastic I have a drawing, a sketch of the work. And that helps me to keep the proper distance while working.
Fantastico, ma poi io vedo qua un bellissimo spazio. Io immagino che l'avete messo bello per noi anche, perché immagino che qui sia pieno di materiale.
Abbiamo tolto i tavoli e le macchine da cucire, giusto per voi.
Grazie mille. Allora, poi avete anche il vostro, chiamiamolo magazzino, sì, le macchine con cui lavorate.
Questo.
Fatemi vedere. Aspetta. Ecco qua, qui tutti dei filati pronti all'uso, creati da voi. Ah, ecco. E qui state lavorando?
Questo stiamo aspettando di lavorare, stiamo aspettando i pezzi da lavorare. Intanto stiamo facendo un po' di abiti per la sfilata che faremo a Vicenza, ad Abilmente. Sono abiti che si ispirano all'aria, quindi sono abiti colorati, leggiadri, molto leggeri, leggiadri, azzurri. E adesso ne abbiamo preparati 5. E ne prepareremo una decina.
Fantastico.
Questo qui è il...
Tolgo un attimo.
E qui avete tutti i vostri materiali che recuperate.
Che recuperiamo.
Perfetto.
Questo è un piccolo angolo di tutti i materiali che abbiamo. Piccolissimo angolo, perché
Somos Cecilia y Mercè y juntas somos Decibanas.
So that's just a quick teaser of 5 of the presentations that we'll be sharing during our upcoming conference, Plurality and Heritage, featuring fiber artists from Europe and the Middle East. And we hope that you will join us. Usually our conferences are only open to SAQA members, but this is such an unusual opportunity that we've opened it up to everybody. So SAQA members get a little discount, but you are welcome to attend, even if you're not currently a SAQA member. It's going to be spread out over about a week, just a few hours every day. All the presentations will be recorded. So if you can't come that day, don't worry about it. You'll have 3 months to watch the recording. And when we first started doing virtual conferences, I was really not sure that I would enjoy interacting on a virtual platform. You know, how could it compare to being in person with other artists? But what I found is that while it's not the same, it's also a wonderful way to meet other artists, to see the art that they are creating, to share tips and best practices and challenges. When I was working on my book about birds and fiber art, I asked for people to come and talk with me. I wanted to run a couple of concepts by people. I thought I would get 5, 6 people. I had 52 people show up, and it was the most wonderful event to be able to share what I was thinking about and get their feedback. And it really changed how I ended up organizing my book. So I hope that you will register SAQA.com/virtual, or go on the SAQA website and search for the conference. We'd love to have you and have you share in this amazing opportunity to see what's happening in Europe and the Middle East. So now back to Textile Talks. We are very pleased that Art Cloth Network is here, or some of them are here, and they're going to be sharing with you what they make and how they work together. So I'm going to introduce you to Regina Marslin, who will be moderating the presentation. Regina, thank you so much for being here and for being willing to organize this presentation.
Thank you, Martha. It's our pleasure to be here today. We're excited that so many people want to learn about our group and what we do. So I'm going to share my screen and give a short presentation about the group. After that, I will introduce our 4 panelists. And at the end, Meryl Como, another member, will come in to join us for the Q&A. So she will monitor the chat. People, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A, and then she will get to it at the end. So I'm going to start to share my screen here. There we go. So Art Cloth Network, sharing a passion for cloth as art form. So I want to talk about our group today. I joined the group 5 years ago, and I am the current chair. My name is Regina Marslin. I live in Antigonish, Nova Scotia in Canada. And as the current chair, I can tell you a little bit more about our group. Who are we? We are a diverse group of currently 31 professional artists from the United States and Canada. And we have come together with a common goal to promote the medium of cloth as an art form and share it with others. And each of our members brings a personal vision and sensibility to his or her cloth. Our members work very differently. We have a wide variety within our group. We have some members that are coming from the traditional quilter side. We do have members that come from painter side. We do have members that like to embroider or, you know, do surface design. So we do have a really wide variety. So this group was formed to provide a support forum for all the artists, as well as exhibition opportunities for the members, and to promote an appreciation of art cloth in the broader community. The mission is Art Cloth Network is dedicated to exploring and promoting art cloth. So what is art cloth? How we define it, it is cloth, fabric, transformed by adding or subtracting color, line, shape, texture, value, or fiber to create a compelling surface. So historically, there is a lot of surface design that was the focus at the beginning. If I look into the history of the group, it was founded in the year 2000 by former students of Jane Dunawal's Art Cloth Mastery Program. So a long time ago, we're going on our 25th year next year. And we still have original members in our group, and Barbara Schneider is one of the presenters later. She is an original member. So that is really speaking to the longevity of the group and the friendship too. The first juried exhibition for the group happened in 2004. And since the year 2009, we have annual exhibitions that are juried by internationally recognized artists and documented by professional catalogs. And I'm going to talk about the catalogs a little bit later on. Our next exhibition actually this year is going to be in April of this year at the Sierra Arts Foundation Gallery in Reno, Nevada. So this is coming up pretty soon. I listed a few other exhibition venues, so you can see that we get into really good museums, very public places like airports. We have over the years really shown in a lot of places around the continent. For our 20th anniversary in 2020, we published articles in magazines like Art Quilting Studio, Fiber Arts Now, and the SAQA Journal. So that was a great year of celebration. What makes our group successful in my eyes? We do have a structure. From the beginning, the members had written rules and bylaws that lay out clear expectations and shared responsibilities. The members work for the group according to interests and abilities. In several committees, we have an exhibition committee, we have an outreach committee, and things like that. So everybody works. We have written core values that we adhere to or try to adhere to, and we're constantly looking at those and define what the group is. So we strive for good quality interaction within the membership. We value each member's contribution. We strive for change and growth as a group and individually, and try to help each other achieve that. We have a broad definition of art cloth, and we try to expand our reach in the world by doing the exhibitions. And we also have a lot of fun within our group. We do annual in-person meetings with artist presentations and other opportunities we have in the city where we meet. We have year-round online interest and support groups, such as a critique group or groups dedicated to certain techniques like print making or installation. We have groups about work-life balance and professional development, accountability, and general interest groups. So during the year when we don't see each other in person, because we're all over the continent, we try to keep in touch as much as we can online. And then we also have a blog, so members contribute regularly on our blog and post on social media. So today we have 4 people of our group presenting, but of course there's a lot of other very talented people in our group. So if you want to see more of our art, we do have a website, and I'll show that in a moment. But on the website, we have also all our catalogs, and you can browse through them, or if you're interested, you can also order them and get them in the mail. in your home. So feel free to look at the catalogs that we have up there. The current exhibitions are the ones that are touring right now, and then the past exhibitions are retired, but the catalogs are still very beautiful. Feel free to have a look, and that's where you find us online. Our website, artclothnetwork.com, our Instagram under Art Cloth Network, Facebook, and also our blog. And feel free to go around our website and look. And if you think you might be interested in becoming a member, we also have information about how to join the group. We will be looking for new members this year. So we do have a call for members starting in September this year. So there will be an application possible if you're interested in joining us. And that's what I have for you as an overview over the group. And now I would like to introduce our first panelists, Barbara Schneider. I will tell you a little bit about her, and then she can come in and share her screen. Barbara is a textile artist with a studio in Woodstock, Illinois, and in Tucson, Arizona. She works in multiple series that often explore issues of nature and environment. The Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, that is the beauty of things that are weathered, old, and imperfect, has informed her art over many years. Her work features techniques like thread painting, working dimensionally with stiffened material, and hand stitching. Over the long span of her career, her pieces have been included in prestigious exhibitions like Quilt National, Art Quilt Elements, numerous SAQA and Art Cloth Network exhibitions, Visions Art Museum exhibitions, and World of Threads. Barbara is one of the founding members of Art Cloth Network, and she has been with the group since the year 2000. Welcome, Barbara.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here and able to talk a bit about my journey with the Art Cloth Network. As Regina has already said, I'm strongly influenced by the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, and it shows up in various series of my work in different ways. My work in the Art Cloth Network has picked up on several of those series, and I'm going to try to show you in small groupings some of the work that I've done over this very long association that I've had with the Art Cloth Network. And three of the themes that show up in just about everything is conservation, nature-related themes, and specifically botanical themes. And the last one that's a big influence is the Japanese art of kintsugi, which is the repair, primarily in Japan, of ceramics, but I've picked up on that concept, doing repairs to work so that it's even more beautiful than it was before it was broken and mended. Over the time that I've been with the group, I've had the opportunity to work and learn with other artists of similar interests. We've had opportunity for exhibits all over the country and opportunity to explore new ideas. And this photo shows our very recent exhibit at the Bloomingdale Art Museum. So to get into some of the work, in the Golden Veins series, I'm going to show pieces over, I think this one goes back as far as 2005. But this is Golden Veins Variation 2, and I've listed the info about size and that on each slide, so I'm not going to read that. But this was a very interesting piece to make because it involved any number of techniques, from taking color out to putting color in, and then adding silk screening and then stitching. And then this is another example of a Golden Veins piece in which I used vat dye and then a lot of gold hand stitching in this one. Another one, this had thermofax printing on Luchador, which at that time that I made it was a brand new material for me. So it was very much a learning experience and how to create raised textures on it and create see-through areas of it. And some of that has influenced work going forward for sure. Slightly off the golden veins, I got into golden light in this piece that takes a very large old tree, and I wanted to recreate the feeling of a Klimt painting. And so all those little gold specks you see are actually cut out holes, and then there's gold behind it, gold fabric behind it that gives it a glimmer overall. It was in our wide open exhibit from a few years ago. And this is another one on the gold theme of 108 beads based on the Buddhist concept of a rosary. And this again used some gold fabric, but then it was dyed, cut out, reassembled, and silk screened. A little quiet moment for us before I switch themes, and this was another piece I made using a luchador overlay and then a different burnout fabric on the bottom layer. And this was in a SAQA exhibit whose name I can't remember at the moment. For our 20th anniversary exhibit at the Textile Center in Minneapolis, we all created 20-inch by 20-inch pieces. And this one was fully hand stitched and again picks up on the idea of the gold and creating more and more layers of textures. Another series of which this is just one example that I'm going to show is called Line Play, and this was based on pieces that I monoprinted quite small and then blew up and printed on spoon flower, very large, and then proceeded to add more layers to that. And it was in the space between the exhibit that we had a few years back. From one of our current exhibits, this is Deserted Views, and it was for our layers exhibit. And I was printing on chiffon and then distressing it, and it was based on some photos I took in the desert that lined up windows in these old abandoned structures. Our current exhibit, the one coming up in Reno, has this piece, Desert Leaves, Desert Contrast, which is based on photos of botanical subjects and then heavily thread painted. And for our most recent exhibit, this is Anemone Dance, and it's in the Blurred Boundaries exhibit, and took dried and Japanese anemone flowers and printed those and then overlaid them and added stitching across the whole piece. My work is very much driven by work I do in the conservation district, where I manage a site and where I also pick up lots of bits and pieces of dimensional fragments that then become much larger work. This one was based on pieces of birch bark that I picked up and recreated. It's about 8 feet tall. This piece was just in the Quilt Visions show that ended recently. And again, it's based on tiny little pieces of birch bark that I've recreated large. And I like the idea of these bits and pieces not only being appreciated, but then when you enlarge them, they're really noticeable as to how beautiful all those textures are. And this is a very recent piece. All these textured pieces are becoming dimensional and starting to work with one another in overlapping ways. And I'm excited about the direction that this is going. And we're almost done. This was another variation on a dimensional piece that was in Quilt National this past year. And it made use of Foss shape, which is a newer material that reacts to heat. And when it gets heated, you can work with it to shrink in various ways. And that's a whole new fun direction. And last but not least, a piece in the line dance series that's going off to Art Quilt Elements later this week. And it kind of combines some part of my art quilting background, because this is everything in there is stitch, 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 and then shaped, driven by the idea from the Foss shape and being able to make things more dimensional. And that's it for me. Thanks for the opportunity to share some of this work.
Thank you, Barbara. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Linda Williamson. Linda is one of currently 4 Canadian members of our group. She is a mixed media textile artist who lives between Bergen and Calgary, Alberta. Currently, her practice focuses on earth pigments and hand stitch to explore her relationship with nature and society, and the tension found between the endless skies she finds in the wilds and the rigid and constraining rules imposed by men. Recent pieces have mediated this conflict in her subject matter and question whether our limitations come from within us or are impressed upon us. Her art has recently shown at C-Space in Calgary, Alberta, the Textile Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and in Liquid in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania with ACN. Linda joined Art Quilt Network in 2017. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Regina. So it looks like I'm not able to show you the entire slide there. So I don't know, Lucy, if you want to take over on that. My top bar is not changing over.
Oh yeah, sure. Give me 1 second here, Linda. We'll
Yeah.
switch to mine.
Thank you. If not, I can just keep going from this point. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, here we go. And we'll go into full screen. All right, go ahead, Linda.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being patient to start with and being here to listen. So I thought today I'd share with you a little bit about my explorations in working with earth pigments. And for me, it started about 5 years ago when I was finding the Procyon MX dye process just wasn't giving me the effects that I wanted. So I reached out to artist Claire Band. She's a UK artist, and she works with earth pigments. And she's the one that I suggested that I give earth pigments a go. So I started out, next slide, working with grinding my own earth pigments and then mixing it with matte medium. So the difference between working with a dye, it goes right into the fibers, it penetrates. A pigment will sit on the surface. So you need something with stickums to bind it to your fabric. In this case, the matte medium wasn't giving me the desired effect I wanted. Next slide. So I decided to explore working with soy milk. Now, it's a slow process and you actually have to work and think ahead of time. So the night before I'm going to start, I will mix up my beans. I know 1/3 of a cup of beans soaked in a bowl of water will give me about 1 liter of milk. So I'll drain those in the morning, I'll throw them in the blender, add 1 liter of water, and then I'll strain it out, and that gives me 1 liter of milk. And the good thing about this part is that the remains of the beans, I can just toss into the compost. Next slide. Now, because I'm spending a lot of time in the back country, my resources are limited. And in this lovely outdoor studio here, I am working with a rain barrel. So if I was working with my MX dyes, I would have to rinse quite a bit at the end of the process. Whereas with working with earth pigments, the joy is once I'm happy with the paint application I've put on, I can just hang it to dry and cure for 3 to 4 weeks, and I don't have to rinse anything out at all. So here I'm working on a really solid non-porous surface, plexiglass in this case, and I've spread out my scoured fabric, same as you would with your MX dyes. I'll paint it with the soy milk that I've mixed up. I'll let that sit 20 to 30 minutes, then I'll spin it out, and the excess milk I'll use to make my paints. Next slide. And I love working on that medium weight linen because it's got great slubs and the earth pigment sits in the valley on top of the hills. So I found the ratio that works really well for making my paint is about a teaspoon of pigment to 100 mils of the milk, and mix it up and you're good to go. And of course, if I'm working on a bigger project, then I will, mix up more product. Next slide. And these are some of the colors you can expect to get from the natural earth pigments. And there are also synthetic pigments, and they'll give you a slightly different color range. Next slide. So I work with several different brands of earth pigments, and I'm happy with all of them. And I can mix 2 or 3 companies in the same project, and they all play well together. The brushes there are natural bristle that I've cut down, and that gives me more strength and, let's say, power to push the pigment into my fabric when I'm working with it. And then there's just a few of the tools that I use for making lines. Next slide. Some of the lines you can make, I can also put stitch on my fabric and then put my pigments on top. I can thicken the earth pigments and I can roll it, I can stamp it. I can use resists like string or plastic. Next slide. And I can crease it. I was looking to try and make, let's say a rock face in this particular instance. So I just wrinkled it up and that will stay. Now, had I not taken out those wrinkles and wanted a flat surface, an iron would not take out the wrinkles. So make sure once I'm working on that non-porous surface and I've wrung out all that extra milk, I make it nice and flat, and then I continue on. Next slide. So I also work on the front and the back side of the fabric when I'm applying the pigments. I know that I can put on about 4 different layers before you'll get flaking of the pigments. And lately I've been finding I'm really happy with the back side of the fabric. I'm getting a softer gradation. Next slide. And there you can see that lovely soft gradation at the top, which was the effect I was going for in this project. Next slide. So you can also apply different layers of colors on top of each other. So here the red would have been put on first, then the black on top. Then I thought a black belt sander would be really great to take off the extra pigment. Went a little too hard on it, made a hole. So now I've made a lot more holes, and that'll be a feature. Next slide. Here you can see I've used a piece of fabric as a resist to pull off extra pigment. Next slide. I can splatter just like I can with my MX dyes. Next slide. And I can monoprint so I can thicken it as well. Next slide. Or I can start with rust and then tea and go in with my earth pigments. So those are just a few of my explorations in working with earth pigments, and thank you for listening. That's my finish.
Thank you. That was great. Very interesting process, Linda. Okay, next up is Judy Langell. Judy is an acclaimed fiber artist and experienced art educator from Kendall Park, New Jersey. She spent many years teaching surface design on fabric and enjoys traveling to broaden her horizon. Often she translates impressions of her travels into simple patterns on cloth. Her abstract pieces are explorations of shapes and forms which are created by using techniques like dye painting, screen printing, and layering. Hand stitching adds the final touch on those pieces. Recently, she took up working with natural dyes, especially on organza. Judy's pieces have been accepted in numerous exhibitions like Quilt National, Visions, Art Quilt Elements, and Quilt equals Art equals Quilts. And of course, a lot of Art Cloth Network exhibitions as well. She has been a member of Art Cloth Network since 2006. Welcome, Judy.
Hi, thank you, Regina. That was really nice. I'm going to share my screen. I hope. Hold on. Okay. 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 This is my work. I have, in the last 4 or 5 years, begun working with natural dyes. Before
Judy,
that,
Sorry, we're not seeing your screen yet. Do you want me to swap to mine?
Oh, okay.
All right. Just let me know when you're ready to change slides.
Okay. So can you go back to the first one?
Yes.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm there on the first slide now, Judy.
Nope. Okay, here's the first slide. Okay. You're not seeing this?
No, no.
Hold on. Let me just try and share.
Yep, that's fine. Take your time.
Okay. How's that?
There we go. And if you just play from start, we'll see it full screen.
Okay.
Here
There
we
we
go.
go.
Great.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So in the last few years, I have begun working with natural dyes. Before that, I was working with MX chemical dyes. And when I was introduced to these gorgeous natural colors, I just became totally enamored with them. I love the idea that these colors came from plants and insects, and that I'm not literally going out and picking the plants and finding the insects. I'm using powders and that I buy from a supplier, except for the cochineal, which makes the reds, which are beetles. Okay, so this piece is one of the first ones that I did in using the natural dyes. And natural dyeing is a little bit more labor intensive than the other dyes I used to use, because I have to do some measuring, I have to cook things, I have to strain them, I have to thicken them and steam them. And here you can see me measuring on a scale. And this one shows me straining one of the dyes, which has a very syrupy feel. So you have to get rid of some of that syrup, so it goes through a layer of cheesecloth. These are the cochineal beetles, and they produce this beautiful, beautiful shade of red. And actually you boil them, and they can be boiled up to 4 or 5 times and still give off the red color. And they just create the most beautiful color. You'll actually see that in some of my work. Here the colors are thickened, and you can see that weld, which is a plant, and you know, all of the different colors that I have. I do have a few limitations, like there's no blue, but you'll see what happens with that. Here I have stretched my silk on a table and taped off pieces to see what colors I can get. And you can see the purple, which comes from logwood, which is a bark of a tree. Now I've taken my piece of fabric off and hung it to dry. You can see how transparent this is, and that's because I'm working on silk organza. And one of the things that really drew me into this whole process, although you can do it on any silk or any cotton or linen, I started working with the silk organza and really fell in love with the transparent aspect of that. Here you can see my table filled with scraps from before, and then all of the new fabric that's been newly painted with thickened dyes. The blues are coming from an indigo vat that I have that I made in my house. And it is actually, I found that I needed the blues in order to get greens, because when I painted yellows over the blues, I was getting different shades of green. So the next step after doing all of this would be to steam them, and that's to set the colors. This piece is called How the Light Gets In. It's about 24 inches by 16 inches wide. It's now hanging at the Hemera Art Museum, which is in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We have a show there. I think it's through January. And you can see the size. And here you can see that I am overlapping not only pieces of fabric, but I'm even overlapping the seams. And you can see that closer here. I'm using silk, hand-dyed silk thread, not by me. And I just fell in love with this idea of transparency and the shadows that came from not only the threads, but the pieces of fabric. It just is giving me the rhythmic movement that I haven't had before. This is the one that you saw in the beginning, how the light gets in too. This is the largest one I've made to date. It's called How the Light Gets In 3. These are all named after Leonard Cohen's song. And it's quite big. It's 45 inches high by 34 inches wide. And you can see how improvisational these pieces are when they're put together. These reference quilts from like the 1600s, 1700s, although they are not really quilts because they're made out of silk organza and loosely sewn together so that one really could not sleep under them. Here's another one. I call it Blue Mountain. And this is not pieced, but it is layered with many different layers of silk. The bottom one was just put into indigo. And when I started to put other colors on top of it, I got this, the depth that I was really looking for. I also could have easily called it Mount Fuji. And here is the last one of mine. It's called Lifeline, and it is 38 inches wide and 18 inches high. It's also layered fabric. And here you can see where I've done some painting, tried to loosen up the painting. So I'm not only painting flat pieces of silk, I'm also doing some painting in here so that when they overlap, you know, you start to get some more shapes. And it's just stitched together on the top. So that is what I have been working on. And that is my part of the Art Cloth Network.
Thank you, Judy. That was fascinating. Last but not least, we have Sherry Lipman McCauley coming up. Sherry resides in Lakeway, Texas, and she is known for bold, abstract improv quilts that incorporate large-scale gestural painting. She often starts with black lines and colors them, black lines on white background and adds the color later. She relishes the challenge to transform these impromptu lines into a cohesive design. Stitching rounds off her designs. Sherry's work has been exhibited in local, national, and international venues like Visions, Art Quilt Elements, and Quilt Equals Art Equals Quilts. She has been published in Quilting Arts Magazine and Art Quilt Quarterly and was featured on Quilting Arts TV and in The Quilt Show. Sherry has been with the Art Cloth Network since 2015. Welcome, Sherry.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Sorry about that. You know how you practice everything and somehow things don't go as planned. Here I am as in a motion shot using my favorite tool, a syringe, to apply paint to my fabric. I'm not just an artist. I'm a mother, a sister, a Girl Scout leader, formerly, a computer consultant, and my artwork is all about me and my experiences. My first recognition as an artist was when I was 7 and a Brownie Scout, and I won a contest in using crayons to create the street in which I live. And you'll notice I was doing abstract even back then. Why did I want to join Art Cloth Network? Well, I had completed an art cloth mastery class with Jane Dunawall, and I fell in love with surface design. And I wanted to connect with more people that were like-minded and have an opportunity to exhibit my work. My work is geometric at times and always abstract. I use paints and MX dyes on fabric, and I add additional stitching with both machine and hand. My work is intentionally abstract. My tools of choice are reactive dyes, fabric reactive MX dyes, paints, inks, and I like to use raw edge applique, and of course, threads. Here's a look at my work table, and you can see I have many different types of paints and tools that I use. My extended studio includes the pot rack that hangs in my kitchen, and sometimes when I travel, I work in drying my fabric in the bathroom. My artwork, it's geometric at times and always abstract. You'll notice the black lines on the right and the colored lines on the other side with applique shears going down. This work, Drips, was one of my first pieces that I did with thickened dye applied with a syringe. It was close pinned to my pot rack, and as the paint dripped, it spoke to me. These pieces are part of the branches of the color wheel, and the paint was applied in my kitchen with the pieces close pinned to the pot rack. You'll notice the detail. And here's a showing of the complete series as it was displayed in a recent show. Black on white came about when I discovered I had many scraps of black paint on white fabric and didn't really know what to do with them. So I combined that with my love of improv piecing, and voila, black on white. Black on white, black, white, blue, black, white, gray. Using the same formula, using scraps and improv piecing, created these two pieces. Layers of the Truth came about with a piece of dyed fabric that was too good to use. And over time, I got inspired using raw edge applique based on circles and let the true layers fling out. Teal circles started with some sampling of colors on white fabric and then being pieced together in an improvisational way. You see, circles are really my thing. Another piece that started with scraps of fabric that were dyed, shiboried, painted, screened, and put together in an improvisational way with appliques added with fusibles. These are recent pieces that were created again in my studio a la kitchen. Transforms 1 was I used Dynaflow paints in a squeeze bottle and watched as the paint lovingly dripped down. Transforms 2 was created using paint in a syringe. And you'll notice that the 3 colored circles have a relationship. Crossing the Line started with a piece of upholstered fabric that had a really cool design, and I wanted to extrapolate those black lines and continue the design. This piece as well started with a piece of upholstery fabric, black lines, and I created it pulling the black lines out both with a syringe and with stitching lines. And this was done on an improv piece of beige fabrics. This piece, same formula, using a scrap of an upholstered fabric with black lines and extrapolating that out as I went along. Does it make me nervous to use a black paint on a finished piece? Yeah, it does. My final piece is moving along, again, created using black paint in a syringe. And if you add water to this syringe, you get lighter tones of the color with some embroidery floss that has been couched down. I'm really the composite of everything I encounter, whether it's workshops, classes, techniques. I'd love to experience it all. And I feel like no matter what I do, I always get a tidbit to add to my portfolio. Today, I continue to work with paints and dyes, attending workshops and classes when I get a chance, and I'm always on the hunt for the next great inspiration. I'm combining my love of surface design with piecing. My final thoughts are, I have many experiences yet to go and many yards of fabric yet to tangle, and I hope my art brings a smile to your lips. Thanks so much.
Wonderful, Sherry. Thank you so much to all our presenters. I want to invite everybody back on the screen. And Meryl, I hope we got some interesting questions for our artists to answer.
Yes, we do. Those are great presentations. So proud of all of you. I'm going to group some of the questions because there were a few questions about the natural dyeing. So those of you that use natural dye, please just jump forward and answer this if you know the answer. So we have a question from Bernadette that's asking whether or not the natural dyes are light fast. And we got a couple questions about this. One question also was about organza. Can those dyes on organza, can you hang that in sunlight? From Jan.
Well, I'm only assuming that I can. They're pretty new works, and I have them hanging in my house right now. But I'm assuming that they are light fast. They're supposed to be once they're steamed.
Okay, we also have the question from Marie, I think to Linda. When you use the natural pigments, do you thicken your pigments with sodium alginate?
I do use an alginate sometimes. Yeah. Yes, and it is a bit of a process in getting the right ratio, because the first time I made it, it was like cement. Anyways, again, explore, explore.
Yes, it's a great motto. And Sharon was also wondering if you ever use pigments, like natural pigments from your site, such as clay.
Well, if you're working with the clays, you've actually got to rinse them, clean them, and bake them to make sure that you don't have any microbes and whatnot in there. So lately I've actually been purchasing. I found it's a lovely process to grind it all up. I mean, you're with a hammer first and a mortar and pestle, and you're grinding. But it was just taking too much time. So now I've gotten over the guilt and I do purchase.
We do have a question that just came in through the chat too from JJ saying that if you mordant your fabrics, then the dyes should be light fast.
Yeah, they are mordant. They are mordanted. The only ones that don't get mordanted is the indigo.
We also have had the question from for Sherry from Beth asking, is your white fabric cotton?
Yes, I use a tight weight cotton. One of my favorites is Test Fabrics 419.
Okay, and we also have for Barbara, we have a question on where and how do you have your digital photos made?
I do all my prep work in Adobe Photoshop on my computer, and then I upload to Spoonflower, and I use them.
Another question, Judy, for the transparent work, how do you hang it? How do you install it?
Well, I have tried putting a sleeve on the back, just folding over the transparent the organza in the back, and putting a plexiglass rod. But I've also been experimenting with tiny little magnets, and they doesn't take away from the design. So it's an interesting way. It also allows more of a shadow to come through.
Terrific. All right, thank you. I think Martha wants to come back on again. We only have a couple of minutes, but terrific job, everyone. And I look forward to our next meeting when we can talk about these things further.
Thank you, Meryl, for roping us all in, Regina as well.
Yes. Thank you all so much. This was a fascinating presentation. I'm sure the audience are all now ready to go in their studio and experiment with some of the different techniques that you demonstrated in your beautiful artwork. I want to remind everybody that we'd love to have you join SAQA during our upcoming conference, Plurality and Heritage, looking at fiber art from Europe and the Middle East. Go to saqa.com/virtual. And if you enjoyed this textile talk, along with all the other ones, please consider making a donation to help us continue to be able to provide this kind of programming. If you go to saqa.com/textile talks, there's a way to make a donation there. Thank you all for coming. Next week, don't miss a really fascinating presentation about AI and fiber art. I can't wait to see how the art and the computer match up. So please do join us next week, same time, and we'll see you then. Here's our list of sponsors who make this possible. Thank you.